Hello, I am Grace Petrie.
And I'm Robin Ince.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
And welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. And there's Sarah O'Connell as well, so welcome her.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you both today?
Warm. It's a magnificent British summer day. We've done about 200 miles
Over 200
today.
miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done one of those really slightly ill-thought-out ideas, which is we started the day in Bridgewater in Somerset, which is where we were playing last night, and then I thought it would be a good idea to play the Glastonbury Festival, which is actually in Sussex, in Lancing, which it was a good idea, but it was a long way. 51 roundabouts between Bridgewater and Lancing. Yeah, we saw them all, and then we thought we'd come back to Southampton to do a gig.
That's what we thought, yeah.
Because of the roundabouts, you weren't planning to.
No,
yeah. Yeah, we couldn't miss them the second time, you know.
So, Robin, how is your current tour, Pragmatic Insanity, going? I saw you back in October last year, I believe.
It's just reached that point now where I think it should come to a grand conclusion. There's a moment in touring where, I've thoroughly enjoyed doing it. We're into June now. I started it in September last year. I've got only about 5 dates after Southampton. I've got like Penzance, Salisbury, Aldershot, and then a little run in London. And then I think I actually finish it in Cardiff, which is, I like Cardiff a great deal. And of course, I'm a Doctor Who fan as well. So it fits in. It's quite, the venue's quite near where the cat hospital is.
Okay.
I think that's what it was. Was there a cat hospital in Doctor Who? There was an early episode of Doctor Who with the kind of cat hospital. It was actually the Millennium Centre. Yeah.
I wonder if it's still open.
Well, I'll find out. Those cats will tell me.
For the threequel, can you imagine it?
It's actually the easiest kind of doctor to be a cat doctor because you can screw it up 8 times and you've still got one chance left. So, yeah, it's a
real dad joke.
I'm a dad. I bought you ice cream earlier.
You did buy me ice cream, yeah. Best dad ever.
So has your tour evolved at all since I've seen it? Is it sort of the body of it very much the same, or have you changed bits, removed bits, add bits, forgotten bits?
I like that you said that in a way. I hope it's evolved since I saw it. No, it has changed quite a bit. What normally happens is the first 2 months is very often almost everything you said during the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And I was doing 2 different shows in Edinburgh, and then I think about November, December last year, I found the original list of what I was going to talk about, and about 1/3 of that is on there now. So most of, or certainly I would say 50% of what you saw has gone, and everything, and you don't see it getting larger. You just kind of go, how could this show still be 2 hours long, but I am gas in a bottle, so it doesn't really, if the bottle is 2 hours size, it doesn't matter, the gas of me yap increases.
That's fantastic. So there's still plenty more to see if people have seen it before. That's great.
Yeah, hopefully.
Now, Grace, I've had a bit of a look at your tour schedule, and it's quite an odd tours schedule, more like, so you've been pretty busy.
Yes, I'm a very hard-working protest singer, but yeah, it's been really bonkers this year, especially kind of through pretty much from last summer. I went straight from festivals last summer into I toured with my partner in a duo through October. Then I was doing a tour called Lefty Scum with mine and Robin's dear friends Josie Long and Johnny and the Baptists. And that took me right up into my own Christmas tour, which was called A Lefty Christmas. And then another leg of Lefty Scum, back out with Robin. I do a 6-piece band called Coven to celebrate International Women's Day in March. Then my own headline tour in May, which I just finished. And then I have 16 festivals between now and the end of August. So it's definitely not a slacking year for me.
You must be exhausted. No wonder you need all the ice cream.
Exactly right. Exactly. It's what I live on. Yeah.
Now, I also noticed you've recently kick-started your latest album. I want to say your 6th album.
Absolutely right. Yeah, 6 albums. Crikey. Yeah, blimey. Yeah, it's quantity over quality, to be honest, when it comes to my output.
How did the Kickstarter go? What was the reception like?
Absolutely, magnificently, astoundingly, humblingly great response. I put it up for 2 weeks and I asked for £10,000, and I was really concerned that I wasn't going to make it because, with Kickstarter, if you don't get the target, you don't get anything. So we put it up, and I was like, no, I think 10 grand is just way, way, way too much. And by the end of the first day, we'd hit £12,000. By the time it finished, it got up to £18,000, which is just honestly really, I can't put into words how grateful I am for that amount of support. And it's a really kind of moving, emotional thing, because everything I've always done has been DIY. So you kind of, you chip at it for years and years and years and years and years, and then it's like, oh wow, I kind of turned around and I've amassed this fan base of this size who are just amazingly supportive people. So yeah, really happy about that. Now I just got to make a bloody album.
That's the tricky bit. I was thinking of doing the same thing and going, right, how do I sing? I've got 28 days to write this out. So what can you tell us about your album? What kind of themes? What will you be discussing and addressing? When can we see it? Does it have a name? What colour is the album cover?
Yes.
Everything.
It does have a name. I can tell you the name. I haven't told anyone the name. It's called Queer as Folk. Thank you very much.
That's a pun, isn't it?
That's a pun. Yes. It's been a very punishing schedule. Yeah. you look furious.
Just come through. It's gone down to 12,000, 8,000, 5,000. They didn't know about the pun. Giles Brandreth is still in with £50 in tokens.
Anyone who's been following my career is well in on the puns, believe me. So it's kind of, there's quite a lot of new material on there as well. But what I have done is I've taken some of the, because when I first started out sort of 10 years ago, the first couple of records that I made were made really on an absolute shoestring budget and in about 2 days. So some of the songs, even though I'm still playing them after all these years, they've kind of stayed in the set. But they don't really have any recordings that sort of do them justice. So I've kind of done whole new arrangements with I've got an amazing band. Some of the people playing on the record, I'm just so lucky to have. Got Miranda Sykes playing the bass on it.
Really?
Yeah. And Nancy Kerr did some fiddle on it. Belinda O'Hooley played piano. My partner Hannah James played accordion. Plus, Caitlin Field, who's done a lot of recording with me over the years, who's just an amazing musician from Leicester. So yeah, it's been a real dream team, and as usual with me, it's a lot of politics, but I think this one, more than anything I've done, is quite I think a lot of my identity politics, I guess, have come out in it a bit more than I think I've reached an age. I turned 30 last summer, and we were talking about this last night. I've kind of got to this space where I am feeling like it's okay to be very honest on stage and talk about things and kind of hold the space that I belong in, and just kind of go, some people aren't going to like this, and that's all right. So there's a lot of LGBT stuff in there. And as usual, a healthy amount of government bashing, which any Grace Petrie fans will know is a staple of most of my body of work.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, thanks.
So, Robin, we met in an angry closing library last year, and Grace, we met several minutes ago on this sofa. But tell me how you two both started collaborating with each other and going around on tour and things, and getting ice cream, most importantly.
I can't remember. Do you get a grant for taking me around, or do I get a grant for taking you around? It's one or the other, isn't it? We met, and it is 8 years ago, we reckon, or no, at the Glastonbury, at Billy Bragg's left field stage, and I was with Josie as well, Josie Long, and we got chatting to Grace Petrie, and went, we think she's someone who's going places, and we really we stayed around and we watched her set, and she did this fantastic set. I really, really liked. My friend Lindsay was there as well, and we had the CD and we were listening back to it in the car. And I often try and put on shows that mix up as many people as possible, some of whom might be well known and some of whom people might not have heard of yet. And immediately I saw Grace, I thought, oh yeah, I definitely want to get Grace involved in stuff. And then Josie, rather rudely, I think, she outbid me and took you on tour first, and then you immediately came out on tour with me, I think. So we just started touring together, and it seemed like a nice mix as well, where there's lots of men yapping, and I'm one of them, and it's quite nice to have a woman who yaps quite a lot now. Your introduction to songs is definitely longer than most of the songs now, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but this is your fault, you and Josie. I mean, I used to it feels quite funny to even think about this now. But when I started out, I was so nervous. I would just say nothing between songs. And these days, and then I started touring with comics and sort of studied at Robin and Josie's feet a bit. And now look at me, you've created a monster. Yeah. Yeah, it's all talk and no songs these days. Yep.
So it's going to be comedy with a little bit of music eventually, and then full on O2.
I think, yeah. I just say, talking and talking and talking and talking, and then 3 chords, and then a bit more talking, and then that's it. That's how you make a protest record. That's what I hear.
I think it was at Christmas this year where I went, "Oh, Grace, you did it overrun a bit," and you went, "But I only did 2 songs." I went, "It really wasn't the song. You did you did like 20 minutes for an 8-minute set," and that was that moment I think of really going, "Oh yeah, that's a long introduction." Mm-hmm. But they're very poetic introductions as well, and I think a lot of them, it's not like she explains the song and then it's like it's backstory and then the main story, and I think that's so it's not like a clash of stuff. But and it's nice as well. One of the reasons that I like touring with Grace is because there's a little point where I start to go a little bit skew with in the head when I'm touring a lot, and that's sometimes when I ring up Grace and go, "I need someone to talk to. I mean, I've made a little man out of potatoes, but that's not working very well, and I need a human being, and it's going to be you if you're available." That's roughly how it works, isn't it?
That's how it works, yeah. And I don't think that I am a good influence, because mostly we just sit in a car and talk about the ever-decreasing state of humanity and how disappointing the state of the world has got to. So I'm not sure that it is hugely beneficial to your sanity.
Roundabout after roundabout of melancholy and existential anxiety.
Otherwise, there'd be nothing to talk about. Can you imagine a quiet car journey? I mean, if you've got to pick one. So, on the 15th of June, if memory serves, I believe it's a Friday.
It is.
Yeah, I think it is. You will both be performing at the Royal Albert Hall for Space Shambles. Could you please tell me, as a person that's going to it, what to expect? Who's going to be there? What kind of show is it?
I can tell you some of the people, but I can't tell you all of the people. That's part of the fun. It's a little bit similar to, I do these Christmas shows every year, which eventually I started doing with Brian Cox as well, and they're shows where we mix up scientists and comedians and music, and that's roughly what we're doing this time. But this one's very specifically about space exploration, about human dreams to go into space, about the history and about the future, because I think it's a really good time at the moment. I think there's so many young people are really enthused by the idea of going into space. You've got all of these different kind of entrepreneurs who also you have Elon Musk sending a car into space, and all of these things are capturing people's imagination. So Chris Hadfield, who's someone that I've done gigs with at Hammersmith, and also I do a gig once a year with him in Toronto, I thought it'd be nice to do a space exploration show with him, and then we just started putting it together, and people like Jim Al-Khalili is going to come along and talk about the Big Bang and why space exists, why we've got something to explore in the first place, and then Helen Chersky, who's just a great explainer of grand ideas of physics, and Grace is coming along, and She Makes War, who's Laura, who's a great singer-songwriter, wrote. I first saw her work because I saw a song called Stargazing, and I thought, well, I better find out about that. She'd written a beautiful song. Stuart Lee's coming to it, and one of the things that particularly excites, all of it excites me, and there are musicians and other scientists that we can't mention as yet, and you'll find out about on the night. But we also have from Apollo 9 Rusty Schweickart, who would basically tested out the lunar module. So that's obviously the first actual mission where human beings land on the moon was Apollo 11, but Apollo 9 was incredibly important to find. There's something very sad in a certain way that in only a little over a week before we recorded this, Alan Bean died, and Alan Bean was a very inspirational astronaut. He was Apollo 12 and also became an artist, did these wonderful... there's these little moments where you think, now we live on a planet where only 4 people who live on this planet have stood on a natural object that is not the planet Earth. There are only 4 people left now, and I think it's also very important for people to know the magnificence of those missions to the moon. And there's a lovely book that I was telling Grace about earlier by a guy called Hans Rosling, who was a health expert who would show people how, in fact, the world can very often seem like it's getting worse. But if you actually look at it statistically, the world is getting better, and many things have changed in the last 50 years. But that is no reason to then go, things are fine. And someone used to say to me, they would say, "Oh, you're an optimist, Hans." And he said, I would get annoyed when people said I'm an optimist, because I'm not. I'm a possibilist. I believe there are many things that are possible, and I think this is one of those kind of possibilist dreams where you look, Chris, who's been on the ISS on 3 different occasions, and we also live in a time where people are talking, genuinely starting to believe again in the idea of the flat Earth, and that people have never been to the moon. And I think that a big celebration like this, part of it is saying, here is a grand narrative which is also backed up by a lot of evidence. The idea that so many thousands of people would all manage, however drunk they were, to keep secret that we'd not merely pretended to go to the moon on 6 occasions, but also add one extra mission that went wrong. We faked a mission going wrong. And so this is part of what the show is about as well, which is, it's a beautiful thing when you get messages from parents afterwards, and sometimes it's the parents themselves who are excited very often, but also you would get, my 8-year-old has just done this drawing, or my 8-year-old has just made this space exploration costume, all of those things, and that's part of what it's about as well.
That's fantastic, because it's part of a week of stuff about space.
Yeah,
is that correct?
It's almost a month, I think, because I'm doing a couple of shows with Sarah Kendall, like Book Shambles Live, which is the podcast I normally do with Josie, but Josie is on maternity leave. Hooray!
Congratulations!
Which is great news, and so I'm doing it with Sarah Kendall, and we have Alan Moore and Lucy Green. Alan Moore, of course, the great writer of things like V for Vendetta and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Watchmen, and Lucy, who is a wonderful explainer of grand ideas of astronomy. And then the next one, we're going to have Adam Buxton and also Hannah Fry, who's a great mathematician. So we're doing 2 smaller shows in the smaller room at the Albert Hall as well. And there's loads of other things going on, which are just to, celebrate human curiosity and where it can take you.
It's very exciting. So I think because sort of in the 60s and 70s, when people were going out and exploring space and there was a space race and all that stuff, it was more in people's collective consciousness, but now it's kind of not, and it's a thing that you have to sort of almost seek out, isn't it? It's not something that's in the news, like unless they launch a car into space or something.
Yeah. Well, your city's got a brilliant space museum.
It has, yes. Leicester.
Into that, it's really good. Yeah. We drove up special.
Yeah, I mean, we're very proud. I like that you never failed to give me an opportunity to boost Leicester tourism sales. So yeah, please do visit the Space Centre in Leicester. Yeah, it's great.
Well, it's great as well. I know astronauts who've been there and actually said, "Oh, we were just expecting it to be this little municipal place." It's a really good museum of both, sometimes rockets themselves, and also, as you know, I've done a few shows there. In fact, I think I'm doing a show there in October, and I bet to check on dates. You should probably come along and do it as well. And it's
everybody should.
It's so much. I had, when I was playing Leicester, a lovely little gig called the Cookie Jar recently, and in the front row there was an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they first saw me when they were 4 and 6 years old, when I did a gig at Leicester Space Centre, and his dad went, "Yeah, we've been coming ever since." And they go, and it's such a, the enthusiasm there, the beauty when you even just start walking towards it, and you go, "I wonder what rocket is in that particular tower there."
It's fantastic. Now, Grace, I listened to a lot of your music online, and one I particularly liked was you saying that you don't have the power to start a flood. I loved that.
Yes, yeah, that was actually, I wrote that song for the Now show on Radio 4 because when you get called up and asked to sing on the Now show, you obviously have to write something that is about the news events of that week, which is quite a stressful thing to do. And for some reason, every time I do it, I have this completely irrational fear that nothing is going to happen to make me cross that week. And the week that I wrote that song, it was like a gift from the gods. It was the week that a UKIP councillor called David Sylvester said that the flooding in the southwest of England was caused, it was God's revenge for the legalisation of same-sex marriage. And I thought, well, I'll have that. So I wrote a song about that, and it's so far it's been proved to be true. I do not have the power to cause a flood. Yes.
What happened during Noah's Ark story then? How was there a massive amount of gay marriages back then, or?
I think there were, yeah. You know, I think it started with the lions on the ark. You know, that's that famous photograph of two male lions going on the ark. So you know,
wrong 2x2. Hey, you get that lion.
Come on. So yeah, you know, what can I say? My power is of biblical proportions.
That's incredible, and it's the start of Pride Month as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy Pride. Yes, of course.
What are your favourite songs to perform at the moment?
Oh well, I'm really enjoying. I wrote a song called Black Tie, which is on the new record, and I'm really enjoying. It's kind of an expression of celebrating. I suppose, sort of rejecting societal gender norms, which is something that's quite important to me as like a lesbian, but also a butch lesbian and someone who's always been quite a masculine presenting woman. I think that is something that we don't really see celebrated very much in society at all. And I started writing, I came up with it because I started writing a sort of hypothetical letter to my teenage self about what's the thing I would love to tell myself, and I realised the only thing that I really would love to tell myself when I was a teenager is that it's totally okay to wear the clothes you want to wear, and I actually think that so many people need to hear that, and I'm having it, you know, I've been kind of playing it on this tour and having adults come up to me and say, you know, oh, that really like you know, there was a part of me that was my teenage self was like really kind of you know, links into that, and that really clicked with me. So I think that's really important. And I also kind of wanted to, I sort of wrote it as a bit of a kind of stand against a lot of the transphobia that's happening in the press at the moment.
It's only every single day.
It's only every single, absolutely. I was about to swear then, I don't know if I can.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's only every single.
You can say all of them.
Yeah, I'll fucking swear all of them. Yeah, no, I think that, and it's something that's quite, you know, it makes me so furious to see transphobia and transphobes like claiming to speak for lesbians and claiming that they hold like the mouthpiece for lesbians, because it's so untrue. And I think that it's kind of I think it's all of our responsibility, but I think it's my responsibility as a lesbian and as a butch woman to be like, oh hey, these guys that seem to for some reason have the ear of national press and have this like direct line into the biggest platforms in the country, it's really important that you know that actually they don't speak for lesbians. There are far more lesbians that completely disagree with them and find what they're saying to be really abhorrent and very discriminatory and very bigoted, and you know, none of us are really getting listened to when we say, hey, you know, that's not what lesbians think. So I kind of wanted to, you know, I think it's quite important if you claim to be a political artist, and I obviously do, I think it's quite important to sort of use your platform, whatever size it is, to sort of address the issues of the day. And I really feel like, you know, this is one of the biggest issues of my time. I think that what's happening in the feminist community right now in Britain is something that massively needs addressing. We need to deal with it, and like my way of dealing with it is to sing a song like that, which basically says like, you know, my trans siblings are my siblings in pride and in protest, and I'm going to stand with them. So it's kind of a song about that, really.
Well, that's amazing, and it's great to hear, and everyone should of course get your new album and all your previous albums and future albums, and
they should get their future albums now.
Absolutely,
we will be creating some kind of wormhole in the Albert Hall, so people can immediately get your future albums.
Absolutely, yeah.
And give them to you so it saves you time doing the work.
This is what you're going to write next time. Thanks very much.
Yeah, like the Almanac in Back to the Future. I need someone to just be like, this is that #1 record you're going to do in 2025. So
seriously, when I was at university doing my dissertation, I seriously thought, I wish I could just go forwards in time, get the finished version of this, and just have a week off.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. I probably would have gone for winning lottery numbers for next week, but you know, that shows your studious dedication. I'm just all about the greed. It's this socialist thing is a total lie. It's all bullshit.
I just wanted to watch a bit more telly, you know, that's all it was. Robin, your next tour, you're currently on a tour, but you've got another tour in the pipeline called, I'm just going to read your mind a bit, Chaos of Delight.
Chaos of Delight, that is the next one. Yes, that's well, originally it was going to be another one which was quite a lot about art, but I'm going out to Australia to do some events with Kip Thorne, who won the Nobel Prize for his work on gravitational waves. And I'm so scared that I've had to I thought the only thing I'm going to have to just write about is particle physics and theoretical physics to try and understand it. So I think Chaos of Delight is going to be the normal kind of a certain amount of utter nonsense. Some things I'm touchy about, some things that I've seen that are absolutely beautiful and wonderful. There is more poetry, sorry, but there is poetry about building dens and poetry about how we're all part of the structure of the universe and the muons and the gluons and the up quarks and the down quarks. So hopefully it is meant to be an exciting, speedy journey through everything that makes us and everything that makes the universe. I reckon I can get that done in 90 minutes.
That seems quite easy. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do for the other hour?
Well, then I'll plug my book, because that's the weird thing, is originally the show was also meant, it probably will end up, but I've got a book coming out in October called I'm a Joke and So Are You, which is kind of about lots of different things: why we become who we become, social anxiety, imagination and its uses, inner voices and how you can use them to good effect if they're beginning to get a little bit tetchy and annoying. So it's kind of, so that will be, while I'm touring in October and November and December, a lot of that will also be me going off to bookshops and stuff. So if anyone's got an independent bookshop, by the way, one of the things that I always try and do as much as possible, because I know so much of the book market is corporations, etc. But if you have an independent bookshop, and if I have a day or an afternoon free and you want to do something, I love, so many lovely places that I've been to. I went to a great comic shop called Wow and Flutter in Hastings the other day, and I was just chatting with them, and they said, just come in here and do a little book thing. It's only a tiny little place, but I love doing that mixture between sometimes going off and doing huge shows, because fortunately friends of mine are, able to, I tour around with Brian Cox, and then going into weird little places as well, because you always find people with stories. And
get in touch, Robin will turn up at your bookshop.
Even if you don't get in touch, highly likely I'll be turning up to your bookshop, because I like books.
It's one of the best places to go for them, really.
Oh, I love them. I love that. I talked about it in my show the other night. There was a point where someone I knew went, "You've made the leap now from bibliophile to bibliosexual, and there's no way back." And you go, "Oh my God, I love these books."
You've turned a page.
2 days.
I know.
I haven't bought any books in 2 days. That's one of the longest times I've not. Why have you stopped me? Why
I've been shepherding you around. That's what it is.
Why
You've
weren't
not been on your own on trains.
Imagine if there'd been bookshops on every one of those 51 roundabouts. Oh.
Yeah, we'd never have made it to Glastonbury.
I optimistically bought a new Stephen King book a few days ago, knowing full well I've got no actual time, but it's just like the idea that I might be able to read it in the future.
Yeah, I love those bits. The bookshelf of intention and ambition is an important bookshelf to have.
Exactly. Now, Grace, I was having a bit of a look online, and I found this wonderful promotional video of you paying homage to Love Actually.
Yes. Yeah, I can't believe that's still on YouTube, because it was made entirely illegally. Not illegally, but, without license.
Keira Knightley wasn't really...
as far as I'm aware, she does not know that I have... Yeah, I think that is probably quite slanderous to call a famous celebrity a fan of my music, I think. That was for my Christmas tour, and a wonderful, wonderful filmmaker called Eric Revel-Dews, who runs Bigger Boat Productions, who I would really recommend for making any videos. He's really great. He's based in Nottingham, and he came over, and we filmed just the little scene where Andrew Lincoln is kind of comes to visit Keira Knightley in the house, and he's holding up these signs, and I thought, that's an easy Christmas tour promotional video right there in the making. So yeah, there's a little kind of few scenes of me standing outside a house holding up signs promoting my Christmas tour.
It was really well done, and I enjoyed watching it.
Oh, thanks very much. It was a lot of fun to make. And I kind of called Eric up and said, "This is my idea to make this video. Is that possible?" And he was like, "I mean, YouTube will probably take it down within a couple of hours." And I was like, "I know." And I was like, we kind of went into it thinking, if we get a couple of hours, then that'll be fun, that'll be worth it, sort of thing. And it's still up there today. So yeah, well, when we filmed anyway. Yeah, check it out.
It used to be up there, didn't it?
Yeah, it used to be up. Yeah.
And it was very good too while it was up there. Now, Robin, a question's been plaguing my mind every waking second. This infinite monkey cage thing, I think is really bad for resources, and I think I've got a way of addressing it. It's just have one monkey cage but 2 mirrors.
Well, we could probably do that, but then we've only got one monkey doing the same thing in infinity, and we want our monkeys to do more work than that. With one single monkey with a load of mirrors is not going to work for us.
They're not going to type Shakespeare with that.
Shake your single monkey and your monkey. No, I love. It's a beautiful. That is still one of my favourite things. Is when you can angle all the mirrors and you just end up getting what appears to be an infinite regress. Or the television thing when you used to be able to. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a lovely thing that when we came up with it was like the reason it's called Infinite Monkey Cage was because I can't remember if I told in the previous interview, but Radio 4 suggested we call it Top Geek, and we were like, I don't think so. So yeah. And Brian and I both went, we won't do a show called that. And they went, oh really? And we went, no, we really won't. And so I sat in a little room in Levenshulme in Manchester and just wrote 100 different things. And then the Infinite Monkey Cage seemed to stick for some reason. And it's so great. We still get letters from people and stuff from kind of both kids and like kind of sometimes elderly physicists with different interpretations of exactly how this is going to work.
I'm going to keep trying to crack it.
Yeah.
So, what else have you got coming up this year? Is it mostly touring, any radio book stuff? What's occurring in your lives?
I've got a very busy summer ahead. As I said, I'm doing a bunch of festivals. I'm doing we're both doing Latitude.
Both doing Latitude, yeah.
I'm at Cambridge Folk Festival as well this year, and loads of other stuff. I'm going to Canada in July to play at Stan Rogers Folk Festival, which will be great.
Where is that?
Nova Scotia.
Oh.
A lot of Petries out on Nova Scotia, yeah. And then, album release in the autumn, and a huge album tour around that. So that's kind of that's like the scary thing on the horizon, getting closer and closer. But yes, you can see me and buy the record in the autumn. That'd be great.
Best of luck with it.
Thanks very much.
Mine's kind of a similar thing. I've got a run at the Edinburgh Festival again. I'm doing 2 shows, Chaos of Delight, and one called The Satanic Rites of Robin Ince, a look at my love of horror when I was a child. And then I'm also doing Blue Dot Festival as well as Latitude. Then off to Australia, Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne to do these gigs, with Kip Thorne, which is just kind of really blowing my mind at the moment. And then off on tour UK doing loads of book stuff when the book comes out, and then all the way, then we'll be doing our Christmas gigs again in London at the end of that.
Fantastic. And I saw you were doing something called Robin Ince and Friends, and because we're such great friends, does that mean I should prepare like an hour of freestyle rap?
It's going to be there. It's going to be a very, 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 it's going to be you and me, and are we still friends after all the roundabouts?
We'll see.
Yeah, okay, it might be 2.5 people, I don't know.
Play your cards right.
You're so lucky. Do you know, right, she does wear a black tie and a suit, right? Yeah. And she doesn't have to pay VAT on any of the suits because she can still get into kids' suits. Yeah. How lucky is that? Yeah. You've got a double whammy there.
I'm just saying, M&S boys, waistcoats, age 11 to 12, you'll save yourselves a fortune. That's my top fashion tip. Thank you.
That's very good advice and very convenient. I have to go to like a tent maker shop or just massive fabric things and wrap myself around a disused sofa. So finally, have you got any messages for your people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and all your trillions of fans around the universe?
The same one always from Kurt Vonnegut. God damn it, you've got to be kind.
Oh, I think that goes for us both. Yeah.
Let's be kind.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Be sure to share, subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.